Imagine this. You go on one deployment and you can move $87,000 into your Roth accounts. It's never tax going in. It's never tax coming out. It grows untaxed. If you do that when you're 25 and you leave that $87,000 in until you're 60, it'll grow to about $1.5 million and you'll never pay federal income tax on that money, ever. So today we're breaking down the Military Mega Backdoor Roth. I'm Spencer Reese from militarymoneymanual.com. You can check out this podcast episode and this article on my website, militarymoneymanual.com, and you can search for Military Mega Backdoor Roth. And this is all about maxing your TSP in a combat zone. Military deployments, especially CZTE, combat zone tax exclusion area deployments, can be one of the best wealth building windows, one of the most financially beneficial years or months of your military career. So to review, the combat zone tax exclusion, or CZTE, is when you're in a IRS and presidentially directed CZTE area. So you can look that up on irs.gov. You can Google CZTE areas. But your pay in a designated combat zone is federal income tax free. It's unlimited for enlisted service members, which is great. So if you sign a bonus while you're deployed, then that bonus can also be tax free. And for officers, it's capped to about $10,295 per month. And that's determined by the highest pay of the most senior enlisted service member plus hazardous duty and hostile fire pay. And then, so while you're deployed, you'll have no rent costs unless you're paying rent back home. You'll have no food costs. You'll be getting extra pay. You'll be getting tax-free income. So your savings rate can really go up. It also opens up this opportunity for the Mega Backdoor Roth. It's the triple tax advantage of CZTE pay. You get tax-free money into the account, it grows tax-free, and then after age 59 and a half, you can withdraw tax-free. So most listeners will just max their Roth TSP at $24,500 a month, a year, and in 2026, and that number changes every year. I mean, that's a fantastic goal, right? For most people, that is far and away above anything that their peers are saving, or way above the average American savings rate. But for, certain high-speed individuals out there, you might want to put more away into your tax-free retirement savings accounts. And just to review again quickly, so the difference between traditional and Roth. So if you put money into your traditional account, you don't pay taxes on it today, but you do pay taxes on it when you withdraw after age 59 and a half. And for Roth accounts, you pay your taxes today, but then you get to withdraw tax-free after age 59 and a half. So the two limits you need to be aware about to make the Military Mega Backdoor Roth work are the elective deferral limits. So in 2026, it's $24,500, and that's into your Roth and traditional TSP combined. Everybody knows about that one. And there's also the annual additions limit. So in 2026, it's $72,000. So that's all of your contributions plus the government match. The thing to know here is that when you receive CZTE pay, tax-exempt combat zone pay contributed to a traditional TSP does not count against the $24,500 limit. It only counts against the $72,000 limit. And this is covered on tsp.gov if you go to their contributions section. So if you're receiving CZTE, it opens up an extra $47,500 of TSP space that doesn't exist when you're at home station. Let's use an example of a 22-year E9. I know it's a little unrealistic for a lot of the listeners out there, but this also works for an 8-year O3, which is probably more relevant to a lot of our listeners out there. Let's say you deploy from January 1st to December 31st of a year. I know, again, that's not very realistic, but let's just use that as the assumption. And sometimes it does work, right? Like I did a PCS to a CZT area, and I ended up getting a full January 1st to December 31st year of tax-free income when I was in O3 out in the United Arab Emirates. So it does happen with like embassy assignments, or for instance, if you're PCS to Bahrain, if you're in the Navy. So let's say you're making $100,000 a year base pay, just to keep the number simple. And again, you can go to the website and check out, if you just Google military mega backdoor Roth, you can see my website here. And I've got a calculator on there as well to help you run the numbers here. But let's just take someone who's making $100,000 a year base pay, like I said, a 22-year E9 or an 8-year O3. In December of the prior year, you just want to set 24% or 25% of your base pay to go into your Roth TSP. So that'll hit the $24,500 limit by the final paycheck in December. If you do 25%, you'll go over by $500, but that'll all come out in the wash and it'll get refunded to you. You won't over contribute. And then you also want to make sure that you're contributing 43% to your traditional TSP. So if the deployment starts on January 1st, you can set it up in January, the first week of January, or the last couple days of December, and you can have 43% going into your traditional TSP. So that's another $42,500 of tax-exempt contributions, and that fills out the rest of $72,000 elective annual additionals limit. Also accounts, if you're in the BRS, for a 5% match, which would be $5,000 in this case. Then the trick is for the mega backdoor Roth is you're putting money into your traditional TSP and you're putting money into your Roth TSP, but you want to get that money out of your traditional TSP and move it into your Roth TSP. And this was something that wasn't available in the thrift savings plan until January of 2026, but it's now available. So you can do up to 26 Roth in-plan conversions per calendar year. And a couple of the restrictions are the minimum amount to convert is $500, and you have to leave $500 in your traditional TSP side. But what you could do is, if you're in a combat zone for the entire year and you're contributing 25% of your base pay to the Roth TSP and then 43% to the traditional TSP, well, that would be, in this $100,000 a year example, that would be $3,583 a month going into your traditional TSP side. And then once the money's in there, you can do the conversion. So you could do the conversion in the first week of the following month, and you can move your money from the traditional TSP to the Roth TSP. And the other added benefit here is the money that you put into the traditional TSP while you're in a CZTE is going to be earmarked as tax exempt. So you're moving tax exempt money into your Roth account, and you won't have to pay any taxes on that tax exempt money that you're moving. The gotcha is that if you have, let's say you were in the blended retirement system and you built up some traditional TSP contributions in there, even just from the 5% match, that would be considered taxable. You would have to pay taxes on that, but you'll just sort that out the following year when you file your taxes. So that's the mega backdoor part, is that every month while you're deployed, you're converting your traditional TSP to the Roth TSP, completely clearing it out. And by the end of a 1-year deployment, you've managed to get $72,000 into your Roth TSP, and then you can add your Roth IRAs on top. So $7,500 in 2026 if you're single, or if you're married, it's $15,000. So you get $7,500 for each partner. So $72,000 to your TSP, $15,000 into your IRA. That's $87,000 into your Roth accounts in just 1 year. And like I said, if you Google military mega backdoor Roth, I've got a calculator on the website that spits out the exact myPay percentages. So you just put in your base pay, the months deployed, your filing status, and it calculates all that for you. And there'll be a link in the show notes. So the reason to convert monthly rather than waiting until like the end of the year and converting all at once is the conversions are done pro rata. So you can't just pull out the tax exempt dollars. So let's say you have $100,000 in your traditional account before you get to the combat zone, and $50,000 of it is tax exempt. So half of it's tax exempt. Well, if you move $50,000 into your Roth TSP, it moves half of the money will be tax-free, and then half the money will be taxed. So $25,000 would move tax-free, but the other $25,000 becomes taxable income for that year. But that's okay because you're in a combat zone for the entire year, so your taxable income is very low for that year, which will put you in a very low tax bracket. So you might end up paying 10 or 12% effective taxes on it, or you might be in the 10, 12% bracket and might make your effective tax rate on that conversion, a maximum of, 12%. And that's okay, right? It's okay to pay a little bit of taxes. You can't pay the taxes, though, with the converted money. So when you go to file or pay your estimated taxes, or if you just wait until you file your taxes, you'll have to make the tax payment with money that's outside of your thrift savings plan, your TSP. So this applies to basically everybody who's in the blended retirement system, because if you're receiving the 5% match, that's going into your traditional TSP side. So make sure that you convert monthly and you sweep the account before the gains pile up, because the gains are also converted as taxable income. It's only the contributions that you make from the combat zone, the CZTE area, that convert tax-free. But if you're lazy and you convert it all at once in December, it's not a total disaster. So like, let's say the market rips 30% for the year and you manage to get $48,000 into your traditional TSP side. That's $14,000 of growth. That's fine, right? Like you'll pay, let's say you're paying 10% on that $14,000. That's $1,400 of taxes you paid. So you'll be in a very low tax bracket because so much of your military pay is not being taxed that year because you're in a CZTE. So where people screw this up is if you go over the $24,500 limit into your Roth TSP. So that's the biggest gotcha. So if you, let's say that you go gung-ho and you start contributing 60% to your Roth TSP and you max it out in August, well, that's going to lock you out of future TSP contributions for that year. So that's why I said that you should just set 24 to 25% of your base pay, assuming that you're making $100,000. Again, that number is going to change depending on how much you're making, but make sure that you're just contributing to your TSP so that you hit it, you max it out by the December of whatever year you're in the combat zone. Once you come home and you want to make sure that you turn off the extra traditional contributions, or else you'll max out your TSP early in the year and you'll miss out on the 5% match for the rest of the year. The other thing to watch out for is myPay caps you at 92%. So that's to cover the 7.5% FICA payroll tax that has to come out of your paycheck. So if you set more than 92% contribution in myPay, then DFAST is going to reject the whole transaction and contribute zero for that month. So don't set more than 92% into your traditional TSP. And then maxing out too early in the year and losing the match in the later months. So just pace it out throughout the year for your Roth TSP contribution, and then make your additional traditional contributions also throughout the year. So let's say you're only deployed for 6 months. Well, it can still be really huge. So let's say you go January to June. Well, you can do 24% into your Roth TSP for the whole year. Again, this is assuming you're making $100K a year. That gets you $24,000 into your Roth TSP. And then you could do, let's say, 65% into your traditional TSP while you're deployed, plus you get the match. So that's another $35,000 that you receive tax exempt. You can convert it monthly, and you can get your $15,000 into your 2 Roth IRAs. So that's still a big chunk of change. That's still $74,000 into your Roth accounts. Growing at 10% for 30 years, that still grows to $1.3 million. So you're sitting pretty good right there. And that's just in 1 year, right? That's the crazy thing. And a 6-month deployment, your tax bill for the entire year. So you receive $50,000 of taxable income minus, let's say you're married, $32,200 standard deduction, married filing jointly. So that's only $17,800. That puts you in the 10% tax bracket. So you're paying $1,780 of federal taxes on $100,000 of income. So it's under a 2% effective tax rate. And if you know that you're deploying next year, you could just keep contributing to the traditional TSP in the previous year at 12% and then convert the next year when you're in the combat zone at a 10% effective or less. So in one deployment, you could essentially fund your entire retirement. I mean, if you got $87,000 into Roth accounts, growing at 10% for 30 years grows to about $1.5 million. 4% rule says that you can withdraw $60,000 a year tax-free forever off that $1.5 million, plus a military pension, plus VA disability. You could really set yourself up with just one deployment and doing the military mega backdoor Roth. So to recap, once again, the playbook in 30 seconds, you want to contribute $24,500 in 2026 to your Roth TSP account. Make sure you space that out January through December of the year. And then make your traditional contributions with your tax-exempt pay up to $72,000. You have to minus 5% if you're in the blended retirement system. Make sure you're converting that traditional TSP monthly over to the Roth TSP, and then make sure you fund both of your Roth IRAs. And then when you get home, make sure you undo all those myPay contributions so that you don't max out the TSP too early in the year. A lot of this is better shown in the calculators and on the website. So check the show notes. We'll have the full article and the calculator. We'll talk about the TSP in-plan Roth conversion guide. We also talk about how to max your TSP and get the full BRS match by the end of the year. And we also talk about the savings deposit program, SDP, which is another great deployment move, guaranteed 10% return on $10,000. And you can check out my book, The Military Money Manual. I hope this was valuable. If you're deployed, make sure you share it with your buddies who are also deployed, or if you have deployed buddies, especially if they're medical or pilots or other high income earners. Make sure you share this with them. Or if you're enlisted and you're receiving a bonus, you might want to dump your entire bonus into the traditional TSP and then convert it to the Roth TSP, and it should be tax exempt going in, and then tax exempt growing, and tax exempt when you withdraw after age 59 and a half. Again, the military make a backdoor Roth. This has only been possible since January of 2026, but it really opens up the possibilities to max out your TSP to a much higher limit in a combat zone.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
The views and opinions presented here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of the DoD or its components. Reference to any commercial products or services does not constitute DoD endorsement of those products or services.